Welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melisa Caprio. Do you believe in magic? What if you were told that all you had to do was get a little creative and work a magic spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Here on Postcards to the Universe, we will share manifesting, tips, postcards, creativity, abundance, and prosperity. Here is your host, Melisa Caprio.
Hello and welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melisa, creating the life you crave. How's everyone doing? How's your February going? I do just love this time of year. The 6 months that we have between October and March are my favorite down here in Florida. We have beautiful weather, which is obvious because everyone from all over the country is here. Oh my God, it's crazy. I really thought this year we wouldn't have so many tourists. We get tons of tourists every year, but I thought this year because of COVID, it wouldn't be as busy, but apparently they don't mind. And Florida is also one of the states that is basically wide open with no restrictions. So if you are planning on coming out of the cold and coming down here, just be aware it's a little loosey-goosey over here. So please be careful and protect yourself by following the recommended protocols. I don't want anybody who coming into the state thinking, oh, Florida's numbers must be low, because that's not the case. So just be careful if you're here. There's a lot of people here right now. It's also Black History Month, and my guest next week, MJ Fievre, I hope I pronounced her name correctly, will be on sharing her book, Empowered Black Girl, Joyful Affirmations and Words of Resistance. And I'm super excited to speak with her. She's a prolific writer, and that isn't her only book. So please join us next week for that conversation. In a few minutes, I'll be bringing out today's guest, and I can't wait to speak with her, author Nita Sweeney. She's amazing and has some wonderful information to share with us today. This week is also Valentine's Day. Hopefully, those of you who are happily coupled are going to do something special to honor your relationship. And this week, the Magic Monday message I created is inspired by St. Valentine and lovers. And the affirmation of this postcard is, it takes two to tango. How true that is, right? Romantic relationships are a tricky thing. A romantic relationship will test you like no other, and that is where we are given the greatest opportunity to grow and heal our childhood wounds. Many of our wounds manifest in our romantic relationships, and we expect our partner to be able to give us what maybe we didn't get in childhood. We do this unconsciously, of course, and unsuccessfally. That is why many relationships fall apart, because we aren't equipped to deal with that, and we don't even realize that is what is happening, right? That we're putting that on our partners. We just make assumptions and think our partner is being cruel or avoiding us, and it takes a lot of patience, compassion, and trust to have a long, sustaining relationship. You have to put the relationship first before yourself, or I believe it will fall apart. I talk a lot about this in my book, Postcards to the Universe, Harness the Universe's Power and Manifest Your Dreams. And I have a whole section on relationships. And I share how to make a manifesting postcard to bring in a romantic relationship. And I also have this very cool little treat in there on how to make a love box. I talk about what you need, where to place it in your bedroom for romance, for maximum effect. It's so fun to share that with my readers. So if you are interested in finding out more about romantic relationships or how to have a healthy relationship in general, and you want to make a manifesting postcard, you can find where to purchase my book on my website, postcardstotheuniverse.com. And also, if you want to see what I'm talking about, the Magic Monday message, you can find them on my website or all my social medias. I post them every Monday. Okay, so there's just a few facts about St. Valentine's that I found that I thought were really interesting. St. Valentine, known as St. Valentine of Rome, was widely recognized 3rd century Roman saint, commemorated, God, that's a hard word to say, in Christianity on February 14th. From the High Middle Ages, his saint's day has been associated with the tradition of courtly love. On February 14th, around the year 270 AD, Valentine, a holy priest in Rome in the days of Emperor Claudius II, was executed. Under the rule of Claudius the Cruel, Rome was involved in many unpopular and bloody campaigns, and the emperor had to maintain a strong army, but he was having a difficult time getting soldiers to join his military leagues. He believed that Roman men were unwilling to join the army because of their strong attachment to their wives and families. So to get rid of the problem, Claudius banned all marriages and engagements in Rome. Valentine, realizing the injustice of the decree, defied Claudius and continued to perform marriages for young lovers in secret. When Valentine's actions were discovered, Claudius ordered that he be put to death, and Valentine was arrested and dragged before the prefect of Rome, who condemned him to be beaten to death with clubs and have his head cut off. The sentence was carried out on February 14th, on or about the year 270. And I was like, wow, now I know why people say you lose your head when you fall madly in love. It must come from that. It's crazy. So I just wanted to share it because this week is Valentine's Day. Just a reminder, if you're looking to share some inspiration and you are on Facebook, come on over to my public group, Postcards of Love, where we share inspirational stories, love stories, beautiful art, and photographs with heartfelt messages and uplifting stories. And I love funny stories, and I'm actively looking for those to share. So if anyone has funny videos, please come over and join the group and share. I would love it. I believe we need as much laughter as we can get, especially right now. Okay, I'm so excited to get to today's guest. Nita Sweeney is the award-winning wellness author of the running and mental health memoir titled Depression Hates a Moving Target: How Running with My Dog Brought Me Back from the Brink, and co-creator of the writing journal You Should Be Writing, a journal of inspiration and instruction to keep your pen moving. She's a longtime meditator, 3-time marathoner, and former assistant to writing practice originator Natalie Goldberg. Nita founded the Facebook group that I just joined, Mind, Mood, and Movement, to support mental well-being through meditation, exercise, and writing practice. And she lives in Central Ohio, where I'm sure it's freezing right now, with her husband Ed and their yellow Labrador Retriever, Scarlet. You can find more on Nita if you go to her website, nitasweeney.com, NITASWEENEY.com. Welcome, Nita. I'm so excited to have you today and be talking about what I think is a very important conversation, especially right now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Melissa. I'm pretty excited to be here. This is really cool. So.
Oh,
thank you.
Good. I was really, really excited when you said yes. I'm like a little kid. I get so excited when I ask guests to come on and they say yes. Especially other authors, because, I mean, as a kid, and maybe you were too, I was such a big reader. I still am. I still am. I always have a book going, always.
Yeah, I was that kid who, when you couldn't find her, just look in the closet, because there she was with a book, or there she was in the woods under a tree with a book, or there she was under the dining table with a book, or,
Yeah.
hidden away with a book. So that was me.
That was me too. I love my books, and I still do. So about your book, which is amazing, and it's doing really, really well. So I'm really happy to hear about that. And I think so many people worldwide are suffering from some sort of depression, or have at least at some period of their life. Do you find that?
Yes. If not, my book is about my chronic recurrent depression, which not everybody has. So,
right.
There's going to be parts that people don't relate to. But especially the condition we're in right now, very abnormal situation, huge challenges. So many people I hear who have never felt that sadness, that lethargy, the tiredness, all the things that come with the depression that I'm used to having, they're having it now. So, I feel like the message really needs to get out there in whatever form it can be. That was part of why I was excited to come on, during this period of time, because anytime I can say, hey, I feel you, and I have a few answers. I'm just so excited to share. So, yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's talk about it, because that was actually one of my questions was how, because I think it's different, but you would know better than me. How is depression different from someone who may just be sad? Or is it different? You know, because we all have our sad days or sad periods of time, but I don't think that that's the same as what people who suffer from depression are going through.
No, it's definitely not, but it can look very similar. And that's that's what's confusing, because it's normal for somebody to have a sad day once in a while, or right now in the middle of a pandemic to sort of feel this extra layer of sadness that they're not used to. But when it becomes chronic, when it's a long period of time, when you can try all these things and it doesn't go away, for me, that's when I needed professional help, and I still do. I still have professional help. But I also needed other tools. And I like to talk, I talk in the book, and I also talk a lot in the Facebook group about a toolkit, about having a lot of different options at hand so that you try this, you try that, you try something else. So you never feel like you're without a remedy. And for me, what I was talking about in the book, I had a meditation practice, I had a writing practice, I had, you were just talking about Valentine's Day. I have been married for, 27 years to this wonderful guy.
Yeah, I was reading that about your husband and
how
wonderful he is.
Oh,
I was
my gosh,
thank goodness for him, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. But I had this lovely dog that I adored, and I had community, I had fellowship, I had a lot of the pieces that felt like should have made my life really good. I had a community. I had, I had gone to therapy. I was on medication, and the piece that was missing for me was movement, was exercise, was breaking a sweat. It didn't even have to be, we're not talking about high impact aerobic kind of things, but just the movement. And that was the piece that was missing for me. For some people, it's the community. For other people, it's the meditative piece, or, some people might call it a spiritual piece. So I'm not ever sure what the piece is that might be missing. But I think that especially right now, if you're in a place, if anybody's in a place where they just feel that sadness that will not go away, it might be more than the pandemic. And that's where I offer these other tools. I'm also very careful to say that I am not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I've taken tons of mental health classes, but so somebody might need professional help, and especially if anybody's got suicidal thoughts. Oh my gosh!
Of course,
if that thought crosses your mind, get help. The suicide prevention hotline. But if it's just that kind of thing where you just have that general lethargy, we all have that from time to time, but it's when it becomes chronic. That's when it flips from just sort of a general life circumstance into depression.
Now, were you depressed your whole life? Did you always have depression, like even as a young woman or even a girl, do you think?
Yeah, I kind of went, melancholy nature might be what you'd say as a kid. And, of course, I grew up in kind of a crazy family, had all of that going on. I was also much younger than my brother and sister, and I grew up on a farm where there weren't a lot of kids around, and I was alone there a lot. So there was a lot of reasons.
Isolation too. You have a lot of isolation. Yeah.
Right. So that's why now emphasis on community.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely think I was prone. For me, it was both anxiety and depression. And I talk in the book, even though the title is Depression Hates a Moving Target, it could actually be Anxiety Hates a Moving Target, because they're kind of two sides of the same coin, where when it gets to be energy, it can be anxiety, and then when it's suppressed or when my mood goes down, then it can be depression. So I think I was a very anxious kid, and that manifested as both anxiety and depression as I grew up.
Wow. So when the anxiety was manifesting, were you the kind of kid that couldn't sit still? Like you had a lot of nervous energy? Is that what it looked like?
No, it was more like panic attacks.
Okay. It was more like
no, it wasn't
attacks.
ADD kind of thing. No, it wasn't.
Okay.
I wasn't high energy. I was much more low energy, sitting still, shivering, that kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Wow.
And I think I had my first what I know now as a panic attack probably when I was maybe 12 or 13. But we didn't know what it was then, and
right.
Just,
of course. No, back then nobody talked about it. Nobody talked about depression. And actually, I do want to talk about why you think that there is still such a stigma around people admitting that they're depressed. A lot of people don't like to admit that they're depressed. They don't want to share it. They feel that it makes them weak somehow. And we know that that is not true. That is not the case at all. So we just need to throw that right out. Being depressed does not mean you're a weak person, actually, at all. But a lot of people still have that. And I want to get into that a little bit, and then I really want to get into your book. But before I can see that we're going to be coming up to the first break of the show, and I don't want to interrupt you while you're giving me all your personal expertise on that. So you guys stay tuned, and I'm going to be back in 2 minutes with Nita, and we're going to talk more.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTImes. Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTImes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTImes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me the Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on OMTImes Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
Hi, I'm Melisa Caprio from Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave. Do you believe in magic? What if I told you all you had to do was get a little creative and work a dream spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Well, guess what? I've got the spell for you. Postcards to the Universe, a global movement for manifestation, is a casting magical tool for you to use whenever you want. How does living in passion sound to you? Join me in my movement where you get to create in the magical playground. Let's think outside the box and do some playful conjuring. By casting out our desires with a manifesting postcard, we explore our hearts and allow the alchemy of our dreams to appear. And don't forget to tune in each week here on OMTImes Radio with my show, Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I share tips on creativity, abundance, and prosperity, and you will be introduced to the coolest guests, trailblazers, mystics, and creatives who enrich our lives.
The United States has the highest rate of incarceration in the world. At the Equal Justice Initiative, we believe mass incarceration has to end. There is this presumption of dangerousness and guilt that gets assigned to Black and brown people. We have to confront our history of racial injustice and commit to a new era of truth. There's something better waiting for us, something that feels more like freedom. Truth can inspire change. Please learn more at EJI.org.
Welcome back. So I have author Nita Sweeney on today, and we're talking about mental health and her memoir, Depression Hates a Moving Target, How Running with My Dog Brought Me Back from the Brink. And I just have to say, Nita, that is a fantastic title. Don't you think?
Thank you. Thanks.
I mean, it grabs you. It really does grab you, which I know, being an author, that's what they want.
Yeah, it's a saying. I looked it up to try to find if somebody else had said it somewhere, but it's something that I've said for years. I have a lot of friends who also, suffer from depression, anxiety, things like that, and we talk about it. Just get out of bed. Just, brush your teeth and call me back. Wash, put the laundry in the washer and call me back. That kind of thing. And so when they wanted a different title, because often your working title is just doesn't work, and mine didn't. They wanted a different title, and that just popped in my head. And my editor, Brenda Knight, she said, "Oh, that's great." So, it's been wonderful. It's been,
it's great.
Yeah, so thank you. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah, I loved it. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, that's a good title, because people, especially if you're suffering from depression, right? And you're looking online for help and you're putting things in, books about depression, and that comes up. I mean, that's something that you'd be like, oh, yeah, I need to read this book. So what do you think, before we kind of dive into the book a little bit, what do you think about the stigma that's kind of still surrounded by people admitting that they're suffering from depression? What do you think about that? Well,
there's two things that I always talk about. One is our culture. Americans are doers. We are the strongest people. We are the leaders. We are the, the type A personality country. And when you have depression, you don't fit that mold. You don't fit in that persona. And so there's a lot of rejection of self. So if I'm not fitting in with these role models that are supposed to be super achievers, then there must be something wrong with me in addition to depression. So that's kind of the first thing. And then it's a lot easier to think, oh, I can just pull myself up by my bootstraps, or I can just imagine my way out of this, or I can just ignore it, than actually dealing with it. Because healing depression is really hard work. I mean, it really is. It's not hard work, force yourself hard work. It's a deep inner work. And and so I would much prefer it to have been, oh, let me just snap my fingers and it'll go away. Or if I just work harder, and that actually is what I did, is I just tried to work harder and work harder. I was a partner in a law firm, and then that's what I tried to do, is just work more hours, just ignore the symptoms.
And did that help? Did that make you burn out more?
Faster, I think. Yeah.
I
mean, I
lasted
so too. I lasted 10 years, and that's actually a long time with somebody who was as chronic as I was. But, and you can't go back and guess, but I do wonder if I'd had help earlier, if I could have probably not stayed in that job, but found something a little bit different that worked. Now, as it turned out, I think I ended up in a great place. I mean, I love what I do now. But I just wonder about the people out there that don't have the opportunities that I've had, what's happening. I do some continuing legal education programs on mental health, wellness, meditation in the legal profession. I have been doing that, and people are hurting. I mean, people in all over are hurting, but lawyers especially talk about, they tell you in law school, you're the smartest, you're the brightest, you're the top of the top, the cream of the crop. And then, you're sitting in your office with all these billable hours, and it can be terrifying. So,
yeah. What made you give that up? Did you just one day say, I've had enough, or your depression got so bad?
Yeah, I was going to kill myself. That's what, I mean, really, I ended up in the hospital. Yeah, I ended up in the hospital. Yeah, I walked into the senior partner's office one day, and I said, I need to go. I need to go. I will, tidy things up, but I don't know when I'm coming back. I'm not sure if I'm coming back, but it's kind of like this job or me. And It took a lot to get
Wow.
there, and he was stunned. I mean, he knew that I wasn't happy. He knew that I was
Sure.
suffering, struggling, but I had really tried to keep it a secret because, you know, I was the second highest biller in the firm, and I had clients who loved me, and I did like my work. It's not like I didn't like what I did, but there were things about it. I don't like conflict, which is hysterical for being a lawyer.
I was going to say.
But there are lots of people who do practice law who do research and writing, and I had kind of gotten myself into that area, but we were still doing hearings and trials and things like that, and that's the part that I just couldn't do. It was too much pressure, and I might have needed to work 3/4 time or part time, and that wouldn't have worked in that firm. So I mean, it's accommodations, finding the thing that works for you. And we build our lives around, we have the big house, we have the big car, we have all the trappings of success that are expensive and heavy. They're so heavy.
Yeah, that's very, very, very true. And actually, it's funny that you said that because I was just writing yesterday for my second book that I'm working on, and I was talking about, and I use the phrase keeping up with the Joneses, and that's sort of in the similar. And if people don't know what that means, it's like having this perceived, like I am, have this perception that you want people to see you like, that you're doing as well as your neighbors or your friends. But we really don't know how well anybody's doing deep down inside. Like, as you said, you were working and they knew you were a little, sad, but they had no idea how deep your depression was. So, okay. So was it a nervous breakdown, you think? Is that what was?
Yeah, it was a major depressive episode. So it's what most people would think of as a nervous breakdown.
Nervous breakdown.
The way I think of it, or the way I talk about it, is it's as if we are all these sort of tightly wound mechanical machines that, go through life, pum, 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 pum. And for me, at some point, a spring popped out and a bunch of the parts fell apart and it wouldn't work anymore. And when we tried to put the pieces back the same way, they no longer fit. In the process of them falling apart, I won't say they became misshapen, but they changed shape. And so I had to find a different way to be in the world in order to survive, in order to thrive. Really, because the springs and the parts, the levers, all the stuff just wouldn't go back the way it was. And that's what a nervous breakdown felt like to me.
Wow. It's a good description. It's a good description because I have only had depression one time in my life, and it was situational depression, I think. It was after a lot of terrible, sad things happened, and I was totally reevaluating my life. And don't get me wrong, it lasted a while. I took medication, I did whatever I had to, got therapy and everything. But once I healed all that, it was never this looming depression that I was always worried was going to come back, so
right.
It was like a situational thing.
Yeah. And that's a great example of how different depression can manifest in different people. And I think that might be a third reason that people, stigmatize it is because they see somebody, your situation was a little more severe, but maybe somebody who didn't have it had depression, not quite as bad as maybe you did, definitely not as bad as I did. And then they look at somebody like me who for years could hardly function. And they think, but my friend over here, she was only, 3 or 4 months and she was fine. What's wrong with you? It's 5 years later. Why can't you get it together? And so I think it's a lack of information. And then, boy, this is just popping into my head. If somebody doesn't have depression, it's sometimes really hard to put yourself in that person's shoes. You just don't get it. I mean, just don't get it because you have not experienced it. And I have to say, when people read my book, part of what I'm hoping, I hope that people read it and think, wow, I haven't been that bad, because it was painful. It was really painful. And so I always have this kind of, when somebody says, man, I really relate, it's like you were telling my story, which happens a lot. I always have this kind of bittersweet feeling of, oh, that's lovely, and honey, I'm so sorry, kind of at the same time. But the other part is it is educating people who don't know what it's really like to be inside the brain and the life of somebody who deals with this on a regular basis. So.
Yeah, and it's funny because I actually said when I was reading parts of your book, I noticed how very open and honest about exactly what it was that you were feeling. And you aren't sugarcoating it at all, which I think is fantastic, because for many, like you just said, who do not suffer from depression, they may think, oh, you're just having a bad time, you get over it, but it isn't like that at all. It's not, that's not what we're talking about. And you really describe, from what I was reading, in a very honest way, clearly what you were going through. And I think that that's what's such a gift of your book to those who are feeling that way and maybe think nobody else is feeling this bad. Nobody else knows what I'm going through, and then they can stumble across your book and be like, oh, she did this, and look at the steps she took to get herself out of it, which is really where your book is really powerful, which is kind of where I want to go next. Right? Yeah.
Let's talk about the positive.
Yeah.
I mean,
go ahead. Go, say your thought.
I was just going to say, it's not, I have to kind of warn people, it is not a happily ever after story.
No.
It's a she got a lot better story.
Yeah,
it's
right.
a she wants to live story. It's
right.
But it's not a, oh my God, her life is perfect now, and she doesn't need therapy, and it's not. But it definitely has an upward story arc, upward trajectory.
Upward story. Well, to me, going from wanting to kill yourself to wanting to live, that's it. Just from point A to point B is a happily ever after, in my opinion. Yeah. You're not like living in a mansion now and, and things are all grand, and not that you don't have any problems, but to go from suicidal thoughts to having the desire to live and create and do more things with your life is huge, in my opinion. But I want to talk about, and I wanted to really get into, which I was found so interesting, because from my own experience, or when I'm having a sad day or whatever, the last thing I want to do is move. So I want to know what was that first spark that would make you even want to start running when most people who are really depressed just want to stay in bed? Like, what was your inspiration to take that leap?
It's my friend Kim's fault. So
it's usually our friend's fault.
It was all her fault. Yeah. And she would laugh. So I'd had baseline chronic depression many, many years. And then I had a year when, this is a total spoiler, but it's in the book. 7 people I loved and a cat I loved died in an 11-month period of time, from February to December.
That is
a
lot.
The first
that is a lot. That is a lot. 7 and a cat.
The first was my 24-year-old niece, and the last was my mother.
Oh,
so that was and then my father-in-law, it was just a crazy, crazy year where we, should have burned our black suits and dresses about July, and we didn't.
My God, that's terrible.
It was insane. Yeah. And so, I was in both chronic depression and horrible, horrible grief. And I'm kind of eating my way through it, trying to go to therapy, taking meds, some of the meds, weight gain's a side effect, just so sluggish. So I'm sitting on the sofa one day, and my friend, high school friend, who's about the same age as I am, about the same size as I was at the time, posted, "Call me crazy, but this running is getting to be fun," on, some social media site. And I thought, she's lost her friggin' mind.
Yeah, I would have thought that too.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was like, that's because neither of us, we're in high school friends, and neither of us were athletic. We rode horses, and I was in band, and she was in choir, things like that. But yeah, and so I started following it, And I liked her post, watched from a distance, a safe distance.
Right.
And she kept posting how she was running. And it wasn't long runs, a few minutes here and there. So eventually, that was sometime in the winter. And then eventually in March in Ohio, like I'm looking out my window right now, and it is white and gray. The sky is gray, the trees are gray, the ground is white. And it will be that way. It's been that way for weeks. It'll be that way for weeks.
Yeah.
And I saw sometime in March, there's these little purple flowers, they're bulbs called crocuses that pop up often through the snow. They pop up. And I was looking out the window, and there was just something about that new life, that seed, that bud. And I just thought, I got to do something, because I was at the point, I had been there before, where I just thought, if I don't do something, I mean, it's just not getting any better. I was on meds. I was doing, I had done these things. I was doing my writing practice. And she seemed joyous. She seemed happy. She seemed like it was really helping her mood. So I very secretly, did not tell anyone, not even my husband, took a digital kitchen timer, one of those little plastic white digital kitchen timers, and my dog. And I looked up the plan, and it said 60 seconds of jogging. Now, it said more than that, but that's what I saw, 60 seconds of jogging. And I thought, I can jog for 60 seconds. And so I took the dog, and the dog was a decoy, because I didn't want the neighbors to think I was at my weight, at my age, at my whatever, in my, pink sweats or whatever the heck I had on. I don't want them to think I was, like, running or jogging.
Right.
So
you didn't want any judgment.
No,
none. You weren't ready for that.
And you know what I was, who I was hiding from. You do know that, right? Me.
What? Yourself.
I was hiding from myself. That's what you're really hiding from.
Well, that's what we're always hiding from.
Yeah,
we're always reflecting. Okay, so this is where we're going to take our next break, because I want to get even more into it for when we come back. So, all right. So let's take our break here, guys, and stay tuned, and we're going to hear more of Anita's story.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTImes Radio. IOM FM. OMTImes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTImes. Co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Imagine yourself being transported to India, to the banks of the Ganga and an ashram in Rishikesh. Visualize that you are welcome to satsang with an American sannyasi who shares the wisdom of her guru. Your visualization has manifested. Join Sattvi Bhagawati Saraswati for inspiration and transformation every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on OMTImes Radio.
Hi, I'm Melisa Caprio from Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave. Do you believe in magic? What if I told you all you had to do was get a little creative and work a dream spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Well, guess what? I've got the spell for you. Postcards to the Universe, a global movement for manifestation, is a casting magical tool for you to use whenever you want. How does living in passion sound to you? Join me in my movement where you get to create in the magical playground. Let's think outside the box and do some playful conjuring. By casting out our desires with a manifesting postcard, we explore our hearts and allow the alchemy of our dreams to appear. And don't forget to tune in each week here on OMTImes Radio with my show, Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I share tips on creativity, abundance, and prosperity, and you will be introduced to the coolest guests, trailblazers, mystics, and creatives who enrich our lives.
These are the sounds of a dinner that almost didn't happen. A dinner now served thanks to people like you. Due to COVID-19, 17 million more Americans may face hunger. Feeding America is helping our neighbors in need. And if you're able, you can too. Donations are being accepted at feedingamerica.org/coronavirus. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
Welcome back. Okay, Nita, we're going to dive right in. So you're outside. It's your first day. You're going to do 60 seconds of running with your dog. What was your dog's name, by the way?
Morgan.
So everybody know. Morgan. Yeah. Okay. And Morgan was a male dog, right?
Yeah. He was a yellow lab
so.
also.
Okay, I
right.
thought so.
He went by Mr. Dog. Mr. Dog, yeah.
Okay, so you and Morgan are going. You got your pink sweatpants on or whatever you
I think so, yeah.
And you're super embarrassed for your neighbors to be see you. So
I went into a ravine. I went down into this ravine where nobody could see us. That's how.
Okay.
Like,
so you found a little patch that people weren't going to be looking out their window or judging you. Okay.
Yeah, the people who weren't home anyway because they were at work.
Right. Okay, so right. So you do this, you have the experience, you run a little, you walk, you're running. And what is your mind doing? Like, what's it saying to you?
This is going to hurt. This is ridiculous. You are just ridiculous. And then, but what happened was I broke a sweat and things shifted. And so, even though it was this tiny little bit of time, I had actually done something that I set out to do. And it had been a long time since I had had a tiny goal and completed it, other than, brushing my teeth or making the bed or something like that. But something really out of my comfort zone. That's what changed.
So
a
seed was planted that day, that very first day. A seed. Not that I'm not saying that it went smoothly right from day one, because that's just not life. But but a little seed was planted that day for you.
Yes, and I flipped into more of a, may have been a hypomanic state. I'm not sure. I don't really care. But it was a much more positive mindset where the physical activity combined with the sense of accomplishment. And then when I got home, I printed out, there's a training plan is what she was actually following called Couch to 5K. And I printed out that training plan and taped it to the end of my bookcase and then made a little check mark on that first workout. And so all of those things combined, the little check mark dopamine hit, the endorphins, and it's actually endocannabinoids from physical exercise, from exertion, changes your neurochemistry. And the psychological aspect of saying, I'm going to do a thing, and I did it. Plus, being with the dog is always good. So,
right. I know. I love how your dog was right there with you, almost like he knew what you were feeling and he was your partner in this new healing journey that you were just starting. Animals are so great in helping people, I swear. They're just the best.
They are. They are. He was just a wise dog. I mean, he was just like the best dog.
Yeah. You were just going in and out there for a second. So, you were sounding like you were breaking up, but I think it's better now. We'll hear you. Well, yeah, a little bit. Did you move spots? Did you move spots or anything where you were at?
No.
Okay. Yeah, you sounded like it's just sounding a little like you were going in and out. So we'll just keep going and we'll see. I'm going to actually read something that I found when I was doing a little research last night about depression, and I thought this was kind of really interesting, especially where it came from, because I wasn't expecting it, from Jim Carrey. So I don't know, Nita, you can tell me if you've ever heard this. Wait, I just dropped it off my phone. Oh, here it is. Okay, so this is what he says, and I thought this was really interesting. He says, depression is your body saying, I don't want to be this character anymore. I don't want to hold up this avatar that you've created in the world. It's too much for me. You should think of the word depressed as deep rest. Your body needs to be depressed. It needs deep rest from the character that you've been trying to play. Have you ever heard that before?
Yes, I read that at some point. I'm not sure where that's from, but definitely, because Jim Carrey, he understands it. And that's how I felt practicing law. It felt like a caricature. It felt like I was in a persona. I was acting on a stage. And for some people that works, but when you make that your entire life, that doesn't, it didn't work for me.
Yeah.
I had to step out of that. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I thought that was so fascinating, and it resonated with me so much. You sound much better now. It resonated with me so much that because I always think, this is just my own personal belief, is that when we come to the earth, because I always think of earth as like earth school, that we inhabit a character that we're playing for that life. So when he described it like that, I was like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense to me. So, okay, so you start the running, and you don't tell your husband right away, because I remember
No, it
reading
took
that.
a few. I don't know exactly how long it was. It might have been a month before I actually told him, because I'm the queen of trying the latest thing. We have the mini trampoline, we have the dance classes, we have the stretchy bands, we have the you know how that goes.
Yeah. Okay. So then what made you start getting, you took this that you just started with on your own, that you were doing on your own, and you joined like a group, and then now you're doing what you're doing, are they triathlons or
no? No,
because triathlons is when you do, right. Okay. I was going to say, not triathlons.
Bike and swim. No, you run, bike and swim. No, I don't swim. I don't bike, swim. No, I do marathons.
You do marathons, okay.
Right. So you know how my running in the first place was my friend Kim's fault? Well, me running in public is my sister's fault. So that niece, I know, I love it, but my sister laughs about it too. That niece that died in 2007, the 24-year-old, she was my sister's only child. And she died of osteosarcoma, a form of cancer. Yeah, at 24. So my sister, after I made the mistake of telling her that I had taken up jogging, emailed me the link to a 5K to raise money for research for sarcoma treatment for osteosarcoma. And my first response to my sister was, "You don't understand. I'm a private runner. I don't do this in public."
Right.
And then I started thinking about my niece, who was sick for 500 days, who had horrible treatment, I won't go into it all, and died. And I thought, maybe I should get over myself. And so I did. I raised a little bit of money, and my whole family was there, my brother and sister, my sister-in-law, my other niece, some friends. We created a team, my other niece's in-laws, and we did this 5K, and it was so strange because it was not what I expected at all, which was lovely. I expected it to be all these skinny, young, fast guys in spandex or split shorts, whatever. And instead, they were there. Those guys were there. They were at the front of the pack. But at the back of the pack were people of all shapes, all sizes, all races, all colors, all national, everything. Everybody was there. As it turned out, I have a neighbor who's from Ethiopia, who's I think he's probably 5 or 6 years older than I am, and he's an osteosarcoma survivor, and he runs, but he wears a sling because his arm, he had to have a bone taken out of his arm and replaced with a and I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know. I didn't know he was a runner. I didn't know any of this. And so it broke my world open. It broke my perception open. It changed the way I saw running and also what I could do, what was possible in the world. And I was kind of hooked. Races are a bit like a party too. You're there to raise money. There's usually some kind of charity involved, and there's this festive atmosphere. Plus, you challenge yourself. So there was like all these things came together, and that was probably 6 months after I started running, and it took me another 6 months after that to join a bigger group. And then what happened, which you'll love this, is I started mentioning the running thing to different people, and I heard about this group. And it turned out all these people that I knew that I didn't even know ran belonged to the group.
Wow.
I was like, what? What is up with that? And so,
So all this was opening up for you.
Yeah,
so,
it was just sort of like I had been from the depression. Part of what you do as self-preservation is you pull inward. You pull in. And it is so hard to push against that. And you have to push a little tiny bit, not too much, because you can't. Yeah. You're too exhausted. Right. But just that little tiny push. Stepping out of your comfort zone. There's a great scene in I don't know if it's great. I love it. There's a scene in the book. I run toward paranoia, hence my running in the ravine. I'm driving to this group, and I'm convinced this guy's following me. As it turns out, he's just going the same place I am. He keeps turning where I turn, turning right. Yeah. So that's the kind of thing. It's like your brain is trying to track, my brain was trying to trick me, and I just had to keep showing up to show it that we were safe, we were okay.
Well, that's what it kind of sounds like. It kind of sounds like when you're in that depressed state, your brain is tricking you.
Yeah, it's not well.
It's not well. It's not helping you. It's not serving you. It's tricking you in these dark thoughts and this thinking and stuff. I think actually your niece nudged your sister and nudged you when she was working from the other side.
My niece is with me all the time. Yeah. She's with me every run. I think of her all the time. She was a runner too.
Oh, I believe that. I really believe that. So what made you decide, okay, this is working for me? This is something that I need to share? Like, what made you decide, okay, I'm going to write a book about it?
Well, I'm always writing a book. I have been writing books. I haven't published books, but I have. I'm always writing a book. I mean, writing is my thing. And I've been teaching it for years. And so what happened, I'm always taking notes too. I record all kinds of stuff. So anyway, but what happened, what's important, is that I had written kind of a draft of a book about a middle-aged woman taking up running.
Okay.
And in the process of letting other people read it and trying to decide, is this really a book or is this just, one of those things that's going to sit in the drawer, I realized that the story I was actually telling is what you talked about earlier, was not so much a middle-aged woman taking up running, but a woman who was suicidal who now wanted to live. And that was the story. And when I got that, then the book broke open for me, and I was able to really kind of lay that down alongside all the, we ran 6 miles, and these are the shoes I wore, and this is the, goo I eat, and blah, 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 that kind of, the more runner-ish stuff. So.
Yeah. So there's a couple things that I want to mention. You have a great free offering for people on your website, an ebook titled 3 Ways to Heal Your Mind. So if you go to her website, nitasweeney.com, you'll see that there. But also for those that are listening to you today that really want to do something and they're in that state that you were in, the depression, but maybe running might not be something that they think they could even attempt now. Do you have anything that maybe you can offer? Any suggestion? Go ahead.
Yoga with goats.
Yoga with goats. Goat yoga.
It doesn't matter. I'm sorry.
I've never done it with goats, but I want to. It's fun.
I think the key for me was to find something that you love and do it badly. Let yourself do it badly so that you will do it, because you might need a challenge. Some people need a challenge. You need to have a friend challenge you. You might need a group, and there's tons of online groups. Other people need to be alone. Find it that way, but break a sweat. That's the part that I didn't get before. Break a sweat, and it doesn't have to be a big sweat. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to be doing this high intensity thing.
Yeah.
Just some form of movement. Walking is fantastic. My husband now, we had a crazy pandemic time where he had a heart attack. He's great now, but he had a heart attack in a hotel in Los Angeles right before the world kind of locked down, and we came home, and he was in the hospital, and now he walks every day. He does, his movement every single day. He's like a different person. It's quite lovely. So
then you think that you see strongly there's a connection to moving your body with helping get out maybe of that deep depression.
That was the piece that was, that was the piece that was missing for me. I still see a therapist. Instead of 6 drugs, I'm on 1. Okay.
Wow.
That's
amazing.
That's been huge, but I'm still on 1. We've tried to take me off of it. Doesn't work.
Work. Okay.
I still have a community. I still do writing practice. I still meditate. But for me, the missing piece was the movement. That's the connection. That was the quote medicine.
So
that
look
really
for the
missing.
Look for the missing piece. Well, we're really almost out of time. So Nita, thank you so much for being here today. It was great. Tell everyone the best way that they can connect with you.
Well, I am Nita Sweeney pretty much everywhere. My website is nitasweeney.com. I'm on Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, LinkedIn. The Facebook group is Mind, Mood, and Movement. Or there's also a writing one called The Writer's Mind. And I have a Facebook author page. So just follow me on your favorite channel or hop in the Facebook group. Go to my website. In the upper left-hand corner, there's that freebie. Please download that and hop onto my newsletter, and would love to connect with people. So thank you so much, Melissa. This has been a great conversation.
Thank you. And thank you for listening to Postcards to the Universe with Melisa, creating the life you crave. Thanks for listening, and wishing everyone a wonderful week filled with joy, abundance, and love. Peace.